Greetings and salutations. This is the City of Forgotten Care. I am Nobody, the storyteller. Thank you all for being here, and welcome.
Oh, have my fucking prayers been answered? Oh my god.
I'm here.
Hells to the yeah. Let's get this shit on the road.
That's a full house today.
We do.
Right.
And it is just 1 minute past hard start. And before we dive anywhere near decisions, anywhere near the reason for us gathering, play. Thank you all for being here. It has been a very long time for all of us getting to this point. All of these characters, both here and in other portions of our play world, getting to where we are today. There's been a lot of history. There is both in and out of the game, but a lot of time that we spent in each other's virtual company, whiling away our little escape from reality. And so, before anything else, thank you all. And in that self-same spirit of all of the glorious float waters under the bridge, all of the wear and tear of the foundations of our fellowship, because that's what it is. We come together and we escape our reality. We get a chance to play and enjoy this system and this hobby and each other's company. Instead of going the full four for New Orleans, I believe that if we are of a mind, that tonight's episode can be the finale and hiatus point for City of Forgotten Care. We can shorten, curtail, and otherwise tie up quite a few loose threads and bring our sojourn in New Orleans to a stopping point for now. Doesn't mean that we won't pick back up. Doesn't mean that we won't further explore this portion of the world that we share. But I believe that this episode should in fact be the finale. That the wind's time to agitate should be the last hurrah of the Crescent City coterie and give us an opportunity to say goodbye to these characters for now. Now, of course, as always, it is just a suggestion, but it is my fervent belief that this is what this coterie needs, that what these characters need and deserve, a succinct farewell for now.
I mean, if that's where your head is, if that's the direction you want to take it, I'm more than happy to. It definitely did come out as a very climactic scene these past couple of sessions.
I'm good with it.
All right. That being the case, and that small bit of newish old news trotted out for us all to pick up and analyze. Of course, I'm reminded of Mel Brooks, the scene in Blazing Saddles. I didn't get a harumph out of that guy. We only got 3 of the lovely 7 who cast their sense, who cast their votes. And this is, we are all in this together. So your opinions matter.
Well, I definitely knew this was kind of coming to a point where we were probably going to put a pause in or a pin in it. Sorry about that. And it seems that the situation of them having pretty much been cut in half, group-wise, not physically, but I don't know about that either. Seems that it would be a good stopping point for what happens after that. So this being the wrap-up, the putting the bow on things makes sense to me.
Whatever you guys want to do.
I also am fine either way.
All right. Well, a nice little stretch, and then questions, suggestions, hypotheses, or corners when you surround off.
I'm pretty sure the male half of the party is what's being rounded off.
More like shaved down.
Yeah, just a little off the top. But no, I think, let's see. Yeah, I think everything that I need to figure out, we can figure out and play. As it applies to suggestions, as always, I suggest everybody have a good time. And as for concerns, I am very concerned.
Concern is a good thing. Care is a great thing. So without further delay, as we ease well into comfortably and fashionably just past our hard start, allow me to be wholeheartedly engaged with the challenge that have gotten us here and the characters that have led us down this primrose path. This is, without a shadow of a doubt, City of Forgotten Care, Volume 3, Finale. The wind's time to agitate vaulting greens. It's quite a mouthful, that title, and it's quite a mouthful, all of the moments that have led us here. The coterie of the Forgotten, as they've come to be known in my mind, in my heart, and in the imaginations of many of the NPCs and SPCs, the Forgotten, the coterie of the Forgotten. Everyone fails to realize that coterie literally just means group. That coterie literally is an association and nothing more. There's a lot of value placed, a lot of connotations valued in that word for the kindred. Some taking it to mean found family. Some taking it to mean business associates. Some taking it to mean ball and chain, a marriage of convenience. Many more ascribing it a special place separate from the humanity that most kindred aspire towards. You often hear in various whispers and various shadows, be the man. Hold on to your humanity. Don't feed the beast, because that wolf in you, that monster in you, if you feed it, will grow stronger. And therein lies the big illusion behind what kindred are. They are just as mortal as those they feed on. They can, in fact, be killed. There is nothing in them that is truly ever eternal. They have the opportunity to live far in excess, to exist far longer than countries, philosophical ideas, political ideas, and yet the eventuality is that along their very long or very short existences, who they are at the start of it never lasts. Folks are literally dying to get into the kindred community, and after all, is the only way in. It is the only truth that exists for them. They are walking machines of death. They are endless voids seeking to always be filled. Not much has everlasting value for them. Not pledges of honor, oaths of loyalty, ties of blood taken or formerly inhabiting their veins. Nothing lasts forever. None of what they are usually lasts more than 2 or 3 lifetimes at best. And at the 3rd lifetime, at the end of the 2nd, most of what they began as has been scoured and scrubbed away by the sheer act of continuing to exist. Every fleeting thing that they have ever cared about ends. And yet they persist. So, we pick up with the coterie of the forgotten. More specifically, we pick up a year and 3 days later in New Orleans. It is again a humid, wet end of winter. Most people forget that New Orleans and most of the South is subtropical. Most people forget that while still a part of the contiguous U.S., that it has a climate unlike most other places, say Florida. That New Orleans could at any time and at every time be described as wet, sweltering, humid. And that climate is not one that lends itself to calm, rational, untroubled thought. At no time is the ever-pressing, and ever-present miasma of heat farther away than a breath. At no time are the stone streets ever truly dry. At no time are the tempers and humors of the population less than on the edge of anger. As while a secondary emotion, it is oftentimes the easiest to grasp when being uncomfortable. It is the easiest to act on when being stressed. It is the easiest outcropping to express any and every inconvenience and annoyance. So, a year after the massacre at the docks, a year and 3 days after the conversations in regards to the lay of the land, what to do about the anarchs, the plans that were in the offing. A year and 3 days since Prince Guibault has proved that His reach and his grasp exceed the imagination. The Baton Rouge cadre of assassins, murderers, and evildoers, mercenaries, having done their job, body after body of mortal found in the dock incident. Everyone says it was a massacre, a misappropriated fund failure, a skeleton crew of mortals who went down with the ship. Those who didn't go down with the ship being swept up in the undertow. The police investigating, finding fault with the company. The insurance agents seeking to make sure that none of the cargo was recovered by those it does not belong to. Rewards were offered, witnesses stepped forward, and as per always, eventually it fell out of public attention. It fell out of kindred attention. Because of the onus of that failing and that failure and that shortcoming. Starting with our relatively less involved members of that massacre. Salem. A year and 3 days. What plots, machinations, and asides would she have tried to engage in to keep that dirt, that smudge, that ruining of her name and her standing, allowing Pratt and Stickler to rise further, not only in the chantry, but in the social structures of New Orleans, because of Salem's failure?
She'd probably just throw herself into her studies, keep gathering up information. Just sort of general information.
So she'd retreat from the public eye, basically, allowing Pratt and Stickler to continue to ride the wave towards their success. They were always able to hold what happens when you have an outsider Tremere who is not up to the task. Prince Guibault, this proves our point right here. Tremere need to be Tremere. And as that has been their message, has been the story that they've told. Tremere who are just outside the inner circles, just Tremere of the lower circles of mysteries, Tremere who appeal and only care about the light, easy to reach magics. Tremere who are on the periphery of everything, party to nothing, are less trustworthy and less effective than those who engage wholeheartedly into the conspiracies, intrigues, and the inner workings of the chantry. Has been their messaging. It has been their political message to climb that ladder. And they've proven it time and time again. Each one able to capitalize on their minor successes to build the imagery that only those involved in society, only those involved in the actual fraternal nature of the pyramid are able to be successfully not only Tremere, but kindred.
Well, considering the albatross was thrust around her neck, she's probably looking to get a transfer, probably being heavily in contact with her sire to assist with that.
Excellent. that being the case, with a year and 3 days, we're going to give you let me just jot this plus down here, and then you are going to, in an effort to escape, to minimize and evade all of the shitstorm that others are using to, well, climb the rungs. Would you be so kind as to roll your manipulation and politics, or your manipulation and Mala if you have it? And while that roll is underway, sliding right along, Mallory. Mal. A year and a day. A year and 3 days to be exact. Since all of that went down. Since the insanity of all of that and the future colliding and bombarding against itself, bouncing and caroming off the edges of the world all around you. A year since. What has she been up to? What intrigues or mysteries? What has she pursued?
Mal would have probably tried to reestablish her connection to the local clan, the Malkavians, to get them to understand that she had nothing to do with the whole Anarch thing, and slowly work her way back into the camp's favor if she can. There would also be her looking into what happened with the person she tried to save but probably didn't at the docks, whether or not that was successful. Avoid her stalker if it went poorly. Just kind of, not lay low, but just work behind the scenes towards being more public, but yeah, not stay out of trouble, basically. As much as she can stay out of trouble, she would stay out of trouble. She would never stop kind of like looking to see if maybe any of the guys had made it out of the boat, like checking places they would run into each other to see if anybody had seen them. Just kind of, keeping her feelers out is what she would have spent the year doing.
Excellent. Would you be so kind as to go ahead and roll your resolve plus auspics, please? And while that roll is in the offing, Reverend No, while there isn't many people that go into the ground in New Orleans, it's just not done. You gotta go so far north that it is not cost effective for her. You gotta go all the way on the other side of Lake Pontchartrain, all the way up near Covington, or worse, right up near Pearl River, right there near the border between Louisiana and Mississippi, to get to good burying ground. But just because there's not good burying ground doesn't mean that there's not anyone that dies. Business has been booming. It has been a year since the massacre, and your particular mortuary services, both in regards to mourning as well as the mortuary being able to put those in the ground or into the oven, has been booming. A year and 3 days. It's no small amount of time, but it's nothing more than a blink of an eye. Especially when you understand that, well, the world moves as the world moves, and the only constant is death. What has Reverend Noel been up to?
Well, let's see. For her own personal edification, she's probably finally gotten around to sculpting those canoptic jars that she's been meaning to do. But other than that, probably just solidifying her contacts over at the coroner, expending that out through a little bit through, possibly hospital morgues and nursing homes, just trying to help build for perpetuity her business. She's not always going to be there after all.
Indeedy do. Would she have used, or does she use, any of her connections to the Hakato of New Orleans? And does she reach out to her ties within the Hakato? Because while, yes, there are many, many kindred who have their fingers in death in and around New Orleans, especially the Caesarians, those magisters, as they like to call themselves. But the Hakato are no slouches when it comes to the idea of the dead. Pater Romilly and Dona Pudinesca, while they have their own issues and they battle socially, one could easily describe them as frenemies. They're very cordial, they're very polite, they are by many definitions kind to each other and their cousins, as they like to call each other, and several other members of the blood.
It's unlikely that she would reach out to them directly. She would mostly just do her best to put Papa Philippe in the best position she possibly could.
Okay. That being the case, how many dots in Nala do you have?
3.
Excellent. So let me just jot that down. And would you be so kind to... Now, would she be utilizing any leverage in broadening these relationships and building these relationships? Would she be pushing them towards capitalizing on others' weaknesses and the like? Or would it simply be proving that she had a quality product?
I think it would just be towards proving that she has quality, because she's already got the contact of 3 in the coroner's office. So mostly she's trying to keep that solidified and maybe grow that a little bit, which would allow her to branch out into these other morgues.
Okay. That being the case, would you be so kind as to go ahead and roll your charisma and contact, please? And done. Man plans, God laughs. It's known wide and far, that particular aphorism. It's a politer version of Murphy's Law. If anything wrong is going to happen, it's going to happen to you. And you all, over the last year and 3 days, have been extraordinarily successful. You all have managed to surmount much of the ill, the worse, the plans and deceptions leveled and fired in your general directions. It is macabre, but it very much does lend itself to the idea that all it takes for a measure of social success is a sacrifice. A lot of people believe that the Illuminati and various other popularized cults who run the country require you to sacrifice persons, preferably those with value to you, so that you can reach higher levels of esteem. And over the last year, with people working actively against you by utilizing the massacre at the dock as their foundation to step up, with others tying you all to the many purported and whispered and rumored anarch deaths throughout the city. Reverend Noel does her best to not even engage in kindred society, and yet there's still those whispers. There's still those, they were supposed to be working for the prince inside the anarchs. Who told you that? Oh, I heard that there's a... and so forth, and so on, and so on. There are so many rumors piling up and conflating themselves that Salem's Mala, Salem's sire, to save their own name, had decided to visit the city. To save their own standing, and having made the correct choice, is visiting New Orleans. Small conversation is needed. All of those tied so that there can be a way to extricate Salem and shake the dirt off. Not quite taking the carpet out back and beating it within an inch of your life, but very close to it, because he does not want to be tied, drugged down, and assassinated from a distance, socially limiting his growth. Their step forward into the pyramid, their rise needs to keep happening, because if you're not moving forward, you're moving back. So, messages here, messages there, lots of communications through subtle means. Gather all of the living, existing kindred. We need to have a conversation. We need to mount an affirmative defense so that I might extricate you from New Orleans and leave that dirt where it lies. And while it's phrased as a request, if you would be so kind, if you have the opportunity, and if it would please your social calendar, I will be in New Orleans. X date. I will attend to a conversation if it pleases you, so that we might secure your passage elsewhere. At least that's how it's phrased. All very polite, all very kind and easy, all very much phrased as a request. But the truth of the matter is, if you don't act in your own best interests, you're saying that they are right, that it was a failing of your creation. You are saying that they are valid, and they tossed off accusations. You're saying that, yeah, they beat you because you didn't have it in you to outmaneuver them. And that just won't do. That just will not do. So the goal is quite simple. All the living remaining kindred that was connected with the conspiracy and what happened at the docks need to present themselves so that there can be a counterattack made to remove all of the attributive shame, dirt, and whatever else you want to ascribe to their subtle incidental attack against you, so that you can extricate yourself from New Orleans free of all of its miasmic murk and mire.
Okay.
The question is, how would Salem go about such?
I don't know, I'm at a loss. She never really got a chance, so.
She never got a chance to grab Mallory, or no? The question is, how would she acquiesce to the request of setting up a tribunal of those involved so that there could be a counterattack made against Stickler and Pratt so that she can escape New Orleans free of all retributive social issues?
I guess she would speak to the regent, let them know that her sire's coming to town and they have some questions. They would like to convene a group of people to answer those questions, or at least, help answer those questions.
Okay. Speaking with the regent, who happens to be not only in Prince Gibo's pocket, but very much enamored with the idea of Prince Gibo. Someone who's living their best rock star truth. It was almost as if just, a few years ago, they found a way to actually live their vibrancy and need to be their truer selves, resulting in this manifest of greatness. So of course, lists are made, acquiescing to an elder statesman, as it were, as well within what the Chantry can and would do. Understandable. And Mallory, successful though you are to shake off much of what has been, doesn't mean that you're successful in shaking off and dealing with the constant bombardment of fleeting glimpses. It's sad. It's like you're stuck in a loop more nights than not. You have the right number of bangles, you have the correct number of room sounds, you have the correct number of visitations and clients and palming. You're doing all of the right things, but there's image after image of Kindred dying and Kindred being buried and Kindred losing their immortality. It's a hard thing to suffer because normally your visions, your glimpses of what could be are things that you can affect. But in these last few nights, over these last few months, over this 12 months of distance, while you've successfully built yourself and built your business and working your way into getting out of debt and making sure that you're free and clear and keeping your head down while looking for the opportunity or a chance that any one of the others on the ship survived, the images of death do not relent. It's almost every night you resurrect with a vision of another kindred ceasing to be. Or worse, with you, this thick viscous vitae coating your throat and corrupting your soul. Every night. Every single solitary night. And some nights more than once.
That would probably lead to her being in a little bit of a fragile state, or more than a little bit of a fragile state, slowly spiraling more into madness. Just trying to sort it all out. She's been making offering after offering, bigger offerings to the ancestors, trying to get rid of these visions. It's kind of like a child trying to appease their parents, doing all the different activities. You know, maybe if I'm a cheerleader, or maybe if I get honor roll, or maybe if constantly just trying to appease whatever this is so that it stops and she gets at least just one night of peace.
She knows that's not going to be the case as she opens up her shop for the evening. There's a ghostly image of a swamp floating in the back of her head, and there's this shack in the middle of this swamp, and there's a road that leads out to the wettest portion of the marsh right before you begin to start to lose actual solid ground. And there's this huge muddy truck with a gun rack in the back filled with all manner of this, that, and the other. And she feels herself stepping out of this truck and looking at the shack and knowing that. So when she opens up the door, finding the two apprentices from the chantry, she knows that death is in the air. It always is. It always has been for the last year and 3 days. But this seems so much worse because in that time the Tremere have grown into the actual secret police of New Orleans, doing Prince Guibo's doing his will, visiting upon those that he marks for this, that, or the other, whether it's just conversations that lead to, well, painful truths, or interrogations that lead from painful lies. Having a member of the chantry appear on your doorstep is about as bad as things can be, save unless of course there are two. Reverend Gnome, you are presented upon resurrection with the paperwork for yet another funeral parlor, another funeral service, another business that you've managed to absorb under the umbrella of your company. under the umbrella of your skill and as tribute and offer towards your perpetuity. Corporations are the only truly immortal American anything. And you have started creating what some would call a zaibatsu. You have started a beast that is ever ravenous and consuming other businesses, other associated fields, and growing larger and larger. So paperwork for this, that, and the other being there for you to peruse and approve and review is nothing new. Save the fact that this comes with a letter. A sealed letter, folded neatly and embossed in wax. And it whispers, much like the ghosts of the past, that something large is afoot.
Well, then she will open the letter and see what she has to see.
You have been requested. It's been a very long time since you've had the opportunity of going to the Poison Apple, but you have been invited. Most politely.
Well then, it appears that I need to clear my schedule for the evening.
There's some huge social cost that was paid. Over the last year, the Tremere have grown in power to the point where they don't make requests. It may sound like it, but the truth of the matter is that the Warlocks all but own New Orleans. There was a point when the Prince of the Quarter, Calabalarshi, only owned the quarter. He only was responsible for the quarter, and then Morgaine died and things went to several degrees of, well, the afterlife while still here on Earth. You try not to use profanity, but there's no other way to really say it. Things went to shit very, very quickly. And in the efforts to right them, instead of pulling the city up and out of the muck and mire of all of that fecal matter, it has buried itself, it has slathered itself to the point where everyone has gone nose blind to how far in it they are. People can adapt and adjust to anything. And people have adapted and adjusted to the Tremere being, well, a power of the city. Because Prince Guibault is still very much in charge. That much is obvious by all of the anarchs who have gone missing. Actual anarchs, or at least that's what the gossip and rumor says. But you were invited with a letter. You weren't drug out in the middle of the night, bag thrown over your head, or worse yet, politely escorted from your doorway into a dark SUV that, well, has nothing but your worst intentions in mind. How would you go about doing so? Are there any plans, any letters, any calls, any texts? What would you do upon receiving that letter?
Was that for me?
That was for Reverend No. Seems as if we're having some small difficulties with Mike, so we're just going to slide right along. A year and 3 days. In the grand scheme of things, for the potential immortality of the kindred, it is no time at all. A year and 3 days. A clear delineation of before and after. There is a cost to continued existence. There is a understanding that everything comes at a price. And at your moment of death, for the second time, with madness gripping your heart, your mind, flooding your dead, desiccated veins, that price you didn't expect to pay. Sweet, thick, artery clogging death poured into you, binding you to the service of the once and future prince, the true, factual entity known as Marcel Guibault. Sin, everything about Prince Guibault for you had been a rock star. You didn't know the buttoned up, severe prince that the rest of the kindred who've survived for decades knew or operated as. You knew the vibrant, bright, clinging to life and living their best version Prince Guibault. So as the darkness exploded around you and that life was offered your service, your enslavement, you didn't expect to say yes, because the outcome was clear. And there's the feeling, at least there was the feeling, of dying on your feet than serving and living on your knees. And yet somehow you accepted. You took all of that dark, sweet death into you again. And while expecting to be leashed and yoked and forced to do this and forced to do that, for the most part, for the largest part of the last year and 3 days, your service has been to the city. Your service has been to your community. Your service has had you ending kindred who stood in the way of the common good. All of the many actions carried out by those who were throwing rocks and attempting to hide their hand, who were present in body but absent in mind, those who had given themselves over to the illusion of freedom without the investment of faith, honor, loyalty, without reaching and striving for their desire and ambition, without attempting to better the world by voting with their feet, by putting in the sweat equity. And yeah, the first couple of times was a little hard. You being a natural protector, ending things because some other being told you to, didn't come easy. How did sin acclimate to being the hit squad for Mr. Guibault? How did sin spend the last year and 3 days?
So,
Up until that year, he had been still on his sire's coattails with no sire to be seen. And basically just passed off to the fake prince. Now basically passed off to the real prince, he still has absolutely no idea what the fuck is going on and is simply following the lead of his elders. If they say kill, he kills. If they say jump, he says how high.
That is quite an existence. How, if anything, has he gotten along with his coterie mates? What's his impression?
His impression of Bo is that that guy would probably be really fun at a party. And if Sin wasn't typically the designated driver, that he has a strong feeling that Evergreen would be the type of person to very much offer to do so. So he respects them both for different reasons. Bo for his sheer wild power, and Evergreen for his very similar demeanor and mindset towards how to handle things.
There is a understanding that had infested Evergreen, being of service to Prince Gibo. There was an understanding that he was the hidden hand, the dirty, well-used shovel to find, to chase and point at the problem, to occasionally shake a duck or two out, to retrieve the fallen, and all without revealing how closely tied he, as a gangrel, was to the very vengeful Prince of New Orleans. All of that changed a year and 3 days ago. He found out that he was in fact serving the man in the iron mask. He was serving Prince Gibo's brother. He was serving the false prince. He had given himself, and he had struck an oath, and was a man of his word, and was willing to do all manner of evil things at the behest of his superior officer, only to find out that his superior officer was not his superior nor an officer. A lifetime of service pissed away in a night of blood, rage, and promised death. The death that he experienced was one of ideals, and realizing that he had been squandered. He'd been spent like hell money. So as death came for the second time, instead of bravely fighting the storm, instead of trying to drag every ounce of the world into his grave with him, he accepted that ichor of death, that vitae so thick and rich that it choked out everything save the taste of it. It has been a year and 3 days, with one assassination after military action after military action, removing actual purported anarchs, taking immortality from those who have been given the opportunity and options of forever. How has he spent or understood his year? How has he come to grips with his coterie?
So, as it applies to coming to grips with his coterie, he and Bo have always been tight. That was nothing new. Their current situation is one that they find themselves in, and a stroke of luck from a moment of foolishness, almost. The blindfold that they had on them, believing in the false prince, removed due to Bo's arrogance, almost, in dragging them into the dark such that they might find the light. But for the new kid, for Sin, it's very much been that, you know, the recruit that's grown into his own, the new that's finally become familiar. He's done his job, he does it right, he does it without asking questions, he does it without complaining. There is something respectable about that. But there is also a kind of sickening familiarity in it. And especially since all that time and effort he put into serving the prince, the former and false prince, he had done so with that level of follow orders. He had done so with that level of don't complain, just get it done no matter what it is. And it had led to the death of one of his very, very few friends. A death that he had taken on the chin and walked away from because he thought, by the word of the prince, it was something that, you know, needed to happen. It was something that sent a message, and the right message that needed to happen for everything to go as planned. But now, knowing that it was all just a ruse, Evergreen has been spiraling this past year. Searching and eliminating the targets presented, yes, these purported anarchs, but in what time he can spare, and what time he has, been skulking about, looking for what information he can, try and put together as many names, as many faces, as many problems to be dealt with in the future of those who had some hand in, knew of, or in some way, while not actively supporting, perhaps suspected and let lie the ruse of the prince, the falsehood, the wolf in sheep's clothing. And he's been constructing his own list of, well, things to get rid of in the night.
So
continue.
No, just asking. So dead for every demonstrable understanding of what death is for a kindred, cut off from society, and in service to Prince Guibo. He's been making a dead pool or a hit list of kindred that deserve to actually be dead.
Yeah, I think he's kind of accepted his role as just a killer. At least that's what his life has been, both mortal and now in his unlife, being sent out to deal with these anarchs. It's very much come across as that is his essence. The way that he solves his problems, the way that he is applied to a situation. He's looking for the parts that need to be taken out so that the machine can run properly. If if there is a way to salvage them, that is one thing. But nevertheless, these are the names and faces of people who let things get to where they were, let things get to where they are, who betrayed not only Prince Gibo, but in his mind also betrayed him and the loyalty that he showed to the tower. There is, of course, taking care of his family, but he can't really do that up front anymore, not with the status of him being a dead thing, both literally and socially.
Death and taxes are the two constants that exist for kindred. They exist for the mortals around them as well. It's an aphorism that everyone knows and everyone understands. Nothing lasts forever, save death and taxes. And while his death is quite taxing, it is at least now in service to the rightful, if there could ever be such a thing, Prince of the Realm, the domain that had been promised. It's not much in the grand scheme of things, and it is confounded by the Tremere, who have all but taken on the role as secret police, the KGB, the CIA, the National Security Alliance, the hidden hand of Prince Gibo's brother. The sort of thing that there's no way to really cotton it, to really wrap your head around. Save your actions, your death has given them the leverage needed to come and grow and metastasize. Speaking of seething cancers growing and changing over time, Bo, there were so many expectations of you throughout your existence, throughout your life. There were so many demands on who you were, what you could be, what you, in the end, considered yourself. And it was always more than what you would rather have the stress from. Because let's be perfectly honest, keeping it simple, keeping it clear, clean, and direct is the antithesis to existing in any shape, fashion, or form in modern society. You have to be nice. And then when you can't be nice, you have to be polite. And when you can't be polite, well, you get labeled all sorts of things, none of them kind or polite themselves. But a year and 3 days, being your most simplistic self, free of all of the stress and worry. You're not making anyone look bad because you don't exist. You're dead, both to the real world of mortals as well as to the world of kindred. You don't exist. You are able to be the weapon. You don't have to worry about aiming. You're aimed by other hands. You're directed. Go do this. Go take care of that. Remove that kindred from existence. Make sure that no one sees you. It's simple. There's also a lot of blood and vitae on your hands. hands. A year and 3 days. How does he adapt, adjust? How does he survive a year and 3 days?
Bo puts his brain back to where it was when he was in a hot zone, back into the sniper's mindset. He's just a weapon aimed at a target. If he can use the sniper rifle, he will. If he doesn't and he has to get close, he will. And he just does exactly what's being asked of him. He doesn't ask, he doesn't question whoever it is that must be destroyed. Meet final death and that's it.
From the sounds of it, both due the influence of the blood bond and past military trauma, a lot of the boys are just going into fucking soldier mode.
Like I said, I had a choice.
Whoever, however, wherever, everyone can get it as far as Bo's concerned at this point.
Ah, I see. Bo doesn't have people that he's aimed at. Bo has a priority list. Everyone's getting it. You're just first.
Yes, in life you can't always be first in life, but you can be next. But whoever the prince points his finger at, that's who gets eliminated.
Here to light the world on fire, starting with you.
And in a year and 3 days, the question beggars itself, especially being as you've all had in a year and 3 days in service and bound to the right and proper Prince Marcel Guibault, not the twin masquerading as him, not the man in the iron mask wearing the crown. In a year and 3 days, your marching orders have come via the one, the only, the insufferable Michael Albert Morley, the Prince Guibault's childer, the nefarious businessman who has dealt and understood corners of shadows you all are set about sweeping and cleaning now. His entire existence under Prince Calabalarshi and the kindred you all believe was Prince Guibault was doing exactly that, setting up a kill list, setting up those who had been responsible or involved with removing Prince Guibault and installing his brother in his place.
Oh shit, okay, so he did the thing I just said I was gonna try and do. Well, fuck.
That's what he had been doing. Your targets are those he has dealt with and done business with and competed with while Prince Guibault was on a different continent. And there's one name that makes itself known. There's a group, a nefarious group, being used as both pawn and scalpel. And as you all have managed to remove the vast bulk of the leadership of the actual anarchs of New Orleans, as you've all managed to make sure that each night another immortality was ending, as you've all put your minds and your bodies and your souls in the vice grip of simply being weapons of note to go get it, to make sure that you all as dogs of Prince Guibault actually hunt. There has been one organization that morally has constantly been pushing you all towards taking out. One organization that he has it under very good standing will be gathered tonight at the Poison Apple. Stickler and Prot will be convening a tribunal, a tea party, a wine tasting, and a shit fest of making themselves even more insufferable at the Poison Apple. Some big high muckety muck is coming to town, and they will be there to show face. And if there's anywhere where they will have their guards down, it will be in the presence of a big high muckety muck. Two people, while not responsible for, but party to, the wool being pulled over the eyes of the entirety of the city. Knowing that Prince Gibo was not Prince Gibo all these years. Using their proximity to power to be the power. And it's time.
There's a kind of moment of just pondering and consideration. As you know, once he brings up the poison apple and the conversation goes on, you know, at this point, Evergreen's, you know, pulled up the poison apple's location on his phone to get the, you know, the quick directions. He's just staring at the name of it there on the good old Google, and looks over to Bo to try and gauge what Bo's stance on this is. The kind of unsaid, are we doing this?
Kind of looks at Evergreen. What that look like? Are you really asking?
That raised eyebrow, like, yeah. And with a shrug and a decompressing sigh, he'll click the phone off, stick it in his pocket, and go. Same night, same as the last. More names get crossed off the list. If
Every name got a bullet on it.
We just there for those two, right?
Unless someone gets in the way, yeah. So you try not to kill anyone extra. I'll try not to kill anyone extra, and we'll only come out with 2 heads.
Looks over to Sin.
If it becomes complicated, it becomes complicated.
Just looks over to Sin. Just now, I ain't worried about the 2 of us trying to add on any bodies. You know, he gestures to Sin and himself. But this one over here saying try not to do so is pot calling kettle black, isn't it?
No comment.
Yeah. Regardless, we're on the job. We're good to go. I've been meaning to settle a score with those 2 for a long time anyways. They wanted to treat me like a dog, only there to open and close the door for them. Well, suppose tonight I get to open that door in a very lovely and loud way.
So, do you want to go in hot or do you want to go in cold?
Either way.
I got my sniper rifle in my kit, so if y'all want to do this quietly, we can do it that way too.
Yeah. We're gonna be dealing with 2 incredibly powerful kindred. we're gonna be dealing with them book smart people. As far as I'm aware, you give them time to react, it's gonna be a terrible reaction.
Well, that's what we can go in hot. We can go in hot, but then they have time to cast spells. I could take their head clean off with a sniper rifle. I got my 50 cal in my kit. I could blow a hole through the wall in their head before they can chant a spell. However you want to do it.
I don't imagine they're gonna be sitting out in front of a window, though. That's the problem.
It's a 50 cal. I could shoot into a tank.
Yeah, but how the fuck you gonna know where you're shooting? You just gonna blow holes through the wall until you hit?
Well, let's see. There's ways to do it if you want. If you want to get technical, there's ways I could do it.
No, ain't nothing gonna be done from fucking that distance. It's unfortunately gonna have to be a boots on the ground.
Alright then, we're going hot then.
They're gonna be close up and they're gonna be ugly, but we gotta get it done.
Works for me.
You think it might be something to reach out? Give the girls a warning not to be there?
We could tell them to not be there. Consider the track record of them never being there when we need them anyway, it would be kind of par for the course.
Just kind of the I don't want to agree, but it is kind of there, kind of a half-hearted head nod. No, I don't know how to put this, but I think if we toss out that there's gonna be blood and violence in there, it might make its way to ears. Shouldn't be hearing it.
We could just tell them don't go to the poison apple.
What is this, like one of those, hey, you were nice to me, don't come to school tomorrow type scenarios? Is that what we talking about?
Well, we gotta play the kid glove sometimes, right?
I'll see if I can't get a hold of Mal. Call her.
Call Mal and tell her to spread the word.
Yeah.
And as you dig up her number to try to call the living embodiment of Marie Laveau, like every other hustler and street performer that uses any semblance of magic and psychics and talking to spirits and spiritualism, like every other street performer in the quarter, we turn our gaze towards Salem. It has been how long since you've seen your sire?
I don't know, since she left Boston.
It's a long time coming. It's been a while. And just like that illustrious amount of huge amounts of time, it is 55 after the hour. Let's be back here at 5 after.
Alrighty.
I see.
Welcome back.
Welcome back is my line, but still, I'll appreciate it. Thank you so very much for having me.
Yeah.
Is everyone back?
Me, Sin, and Bo are here. I don't know about the rest of these cinnamon rolls. Okay, yeah, Harper is here as well. And Salem is texting, so yes. Do we have a lyric?
Alright. Salem, you back? Or are you still busy with your text?
I'm here.
So, it's been a while since you've seen your sire. What was the last thing Salem actually remembers of their sire in close proximity?
I don't know, probably learning some ritual for him or something.
So they were engaged. They were the sort of open up a whole new world, show you sort of sire before leaving Boston, before spreading their wings and soaring as best as they could. So the small shift, or the realization that there were several things afoot, that there was and is a political ideology at play, that Salem's potential was the most pressing thing. Is there anything in that changes Salem's perception and understanding of their sire?
Probably not.
So full eyes open and focused on goals is something that Salem is very much accustomed to, something that they immediately understand. And it's not what it is what it seems to be. Is a viewpoint that comes relatively easily to Salem and for Salem. While the request and the acquiescing is done, and is a small surprise that this has become the political theater. There are anarchs dying in the street, disappearing nightly, going missing. There are, in that supposed anarch disappearance and being driven from the city, the Salem is aware that it is not in fact the pyramid or the chantry responsible. Salem is well aware that it is not Stickler and Pratt who are seeking to rise and eventually do away with the regent, who is in Prince Gibo's pocket. They understand that this last year, 3 days since the incident at the dock, that for as effective as Pratt and Stickler's actions have been in raising the stock price of the chantry, that they are not responsible. They are not the hidden hands behind the disappearances, the obliteration. Yet those disappearances and obliterations are still happening. People kindred get into vehicles and don't exit. Kindred are viewed one night at a club out and about, or hunting, or seen from a distance and then never seen again. And speaking of stepping into a vehicle, the two Tremere at your door, gently requesting your presence. Mallory. The visions of death and blood, as always, assailing you. The gifts to the ancestors. The very patient application of all of her skills. All for naught. Visions of blood and death. Where does that leave her? Mallory, you make it back yet? Alright, sliding right along. So the question was asked previously, Harper, how, knowing what she does about what's in the offing, the huge political theater, and the favors called into play for her to not awaken and be escorted at the hands of at least one of Guibo's burgeoning secret police, the Chantry, instead an invitation. How does she prepare for her arrival? Or does she use this opportunity to escape? Hop into a cab, slip out the back, hop on a bus, steal a plane, find a paddle boat somewhere that leads far out into the sewers, into the swamps, and disappear? How does she prepare?
All of those would be excellent ideas. But no, she will probably change into something a little less businessy and make her way over to the Apple, probably by trolley.
Yes, the scenic trolley car is one of the most quaint and strangely problematic methods of public transportation. Because they're not heated. Not that you have to worry about the heat as something one must keep in New Orleans. But they also don't keep out the cold, which again is not as huge of a worry in New Orleans as most people would suspect, because winter happens everywhere in North America, but it just doesn't happen nearly as much as one would think in New Orleans. Keeping out the wet, however, is a thing. And you luck out this evening. The trolley car actually is one of the few that has permanent windows in place. The trolley car is one of those that you know would probably be out of commission during the summer, well, spring, summer, fall, i.e. summer in New Orleans. But in winter, those permanent windows help keep out the wet. They help keep out most things. They don't keep out the doubts. It's been a year and 3 days, and yet someone still is pulling political strings. Someone is still seeking to capitalize on the massacre at the docks. Although that moment had been permanently put away, but the rest, you all lost 3 members of your coterie that night. The Anarchs lost several members that night, and have lost several members every night since. The only people, the only kindred that came out ahead, in truth, were the Tremere, were the Chantry. They've risen through the ranks, the Sheriff and the Scourge being nothing more than figureheads. As far as everyone is concerned, as far as everyone knows, it has been the Tremere behind all of their disappearances. Stickler and Prot being most effective, making all of the problems, both real and imagined, disappear. And you are invited to the political theater that is in the offing tonight. You're sure someone or someones will be trotted out before everyone. Votes will be made. People will cast their aspersions, and then that person will probably never be seen from again.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
The question is, normally you have an idea as to who that might be. Whether it is the cute little rat-nosed kid with the glasses, or whether it is one of the purported ministry, or whether it's one of those individuals who just happen to be doing business with the wrong sort of person, like one of those caitiffs or the thin blood that run around a quarter in the outer regions of the city. But there's no name. There's no target. And you know what they say. If you walk into a poker game and you don't know who's being played, it usually means you.
Oh yeah, she's fully aware that this could be a trap. But if you know it's a trap, is it really a trap?
Yeah, Star-Lord, it is still a trap.
I swear.
So taking the trolley, moving through the quarter, south and east of the actual quarter, right at the very edge of it is the Poison Apple. And the year since the massacre at the docks have been surprisingly kind to the apple, to the Tremere as a whole. That old aphorism that a rising tide raises all boats seems to be true. You see all sorts of dark town cars and SUVs and several Teslas parked up and down the street. You see several groups of tourists who see that the Poison Apple is in fact closed and walk away, their heads like, how are they keeping business? I don't know, they clearly are allergic to money. And you can tell that they're from out of town based on their speech and their clear selfishness. It is a lovely night in New Orleans, as far as such things go. Sure, that may be someone who loses their immortality or worse tonight, but in the grand scheme of things, it's temperate, it's wet, it's warmer than expected.
Alright, she will wait for the mutterers and the mumblers to pass by further on down the street, and presuming the invitation told her, where to go, we'll go to that location and knock on the door.
There are several doors inside into the Poison Apple. Only one of them for public use. Most people wouldn't even consider the wrought iron gate that looks several decades out of service to be an actual entrance. But just inside that gate, on the side of the building, is a door that swings only in one direction. It is one of the many open public secrets amongst the kindred in regards to the apple and for several other buildings through the quarter and around the city as a whole. The architecture is very much designed to be misleading. Most non-natives would consider it an entrance into the building next door instead of into the side parlor of the apple. You see that you're not the only one arriving. Stickler and Pratt are there, of course, already attempting to hold court and curry favor with one another and gather the assemblage of kindred who have been invited or who are being dragged in. And that is no stretch of the phrasing, that is no exaggeration. There actually are several individuals who are in fact dragged in, carried, or escorted forcefully. There is Dutch, who hangs out and is known to associate just south of the quarter, taking up more property and space than he should, hanging out there in the Turo area of the city. Then you have Antonio Savoy. She clearly put up a fight and refuses to mend the damage to herself as a statement of some political measure or another, showing the unkindness of the Tremere who escorted her here. You have the sheriff looking out of sorts, his moosed and styled what would normally be considered a pompadour, but is in fact just a high top fade, with his wavy windswept hair, his manicured facial hair carved into an elaborate geometric shape, and his ever-present all too expensive leather jacket that is well, someone else's several month salary. You've got Miss Opal in her usual scarf and hood thrown about her face to hide the very fungal looking outcroppings of the blood coursing through her veins. Several others, for instance, Ernst, who some people have started calling the Voivode of Chalmette. And painfully, at least for you mentally, there is Mr. Travers. The one, the only Mr. Travers. The kindred you knew was called in to make a mess and a mockery of most of the things that were happening back then. A lot can change in a year, and he's been visiting the city more and more regularly. And just as you enter in and are taking notice of those who are actually here and present and accounted for, Max Castiglione enters, her inimitable style dripping off of her. The well-worn blue jean blazer, the fur-lined hoodie, and that occasionally silly-looking skull cap perched on her head at an odd angle, her bountiful auburn curls sticking out from the edge. And that smile like she's in on a joke that only she knows is in the offing. And just like that, the table is set. The meal is being prepared. The oven's going full tilt, and you can smell whatever it is being prepared wafting through the place. There's a tension, a palpable sort of thing that leaves the mouth salivating for what is to come. Even if you are to be the duck roasted and served up, it smells delicious. And speaking of smelling delicious, that is the antithesis to the marsh and swamplands you all travel through to get back into the city, to get back into the quarter. Even though the entirety of the place is wet and sinking micro inches every single solitary day, there's a scent that is solely from the outer reaches of the space. There's the scent that comes from the swamp tours and all the muck and mire turned up and churned up from the fan boats that frequent the area. There's the overwhelming scent of stagnant water that pervades most spaces, but worse so the farther out from the city you get, because the city pumps its waste downstream as far away from its city centers as possible, and there's still a wetness that sticks to everything as you all make your way in. Is there any planned action besides just rush in and attack the first thing you see?
So
Sorry, what do you think?
I've been doing this for a year and a half, 3 days.
So,
has the prince and by extension the guy that we've been using as a go-between for our missions and what have they been supplying us with it?
Normally, yes. Normally you all have who may be there. You have a guest list of sorts. Normally you all have a rough itinerary and a fallback point. This is literally the first time in a year of service where, like rabid dogs accustomed to being beaten and whipped into a frenzy and then having its collar snatched off as an attack signal, you guys have been treated that way. Instead of like military operators, instead of like skilled journeymen, you have literally been pointed at a thing and told fetch. It's the first time. As if something's changing.
I meant, like, did they give us anything that we could kill stuff with?
Like weaponry?
Yeah, or explosives. I have to ask.
But
I feel
boom
like
booms are a restricted item.
They very much are.
Homes are nice though.
Yeah, and it's a sure way to get the federal government involved, which is if you screw up, the last thing that is wanted. The federal government is beyond the reach of most princes, and those who do have their fingers in their local federal government don't keep them there very long. You must operate lightly if you want to continue operating. As such, keep it local. Keep it to a particular ward where you have members on the police, members on the fire department. You have your fingers in much of the pies to keep people directed or pointed in the direction you need. If it gets federal, the only thing you can be sure of is that it is going to be a mess, and the only way to really outlast it is to typically just bury yourself, seal yourself away in torpor for a few months or a few years. And, well, he's already had enough of that.
Alright, well. Dave just kicking in the door and getting in there. I have an interest in getting access to the external power box and killing the power before we go in there. Kind of, it might let them know that something is up, but how should I put it? Sensory deprivation, even though we are beings of the night, not all of us are prepared for that. Not all of us are prepared for being thrust into the pitch. And beyond that, it will throw things in a disarray and perhaps give us that moment of confusion before we add on top of it with the shock and awe. What do you boys think? Kill the power or no?
all of it.
I'm good with it as long as I get a chance to load my semi-automatic rifle with my carbine with some incendiary rounds.
Do you have those?
Which part of in my kit did you miss?
You know, I really gotta stop asking these damn questions. You load what you're gonna load, but just keep that shit pointer well and truly away from me.
That's the plan. Unless you run in front of it.
I see. Alright, so kill the power. I got this M84 here. He holds up what is most commonly known as a flashbang. We'll do standard procedure. I'll boot in the door. Or you boot in the door, I'll toss it, and we can go in and start raining hell. But is there anything that we want to keep in mind? We want to set up an escape avenue from here. Or we just gonna...
We should probably hit from different angles. That way we don't end up crossing each other.
But the thing is, the thing is, we don't know what fucking room they're in.
That's why we should hit from different angles. When we hear damage, we know where they are.
I suppose that's true.
Since you're killing the power, you hit the back. Sin, you go in the front, and I'll come in through the side.
Yeah, I love this.
Alright, that works as well. Now, we're gonna have to walk on foot for a little bit. Because I want to keep the van close to the edge of the corridor. That way we can't get blocked in if the police respond a little faster than they should.
Sounds good to me.
That, or do you want the van there closer so we can hit the road as quick as possible?
That definitely works.
I'm asking your opinions here.
As my van, I have to park closer so I could actually keep my van this time.
Alright.
I already lost one last year.
Understood then. Well, we'll park in the quarter then, and get to work. I'll have us a block out from where we're operating. That way we ain't too close, but we is close.
That's good enough. We can all make a block in a good jog.
Mm-hmm. And if we see any of those three there, we gonna try and get them out of there. Or we just gonna finish the job first.
I don't know then.
I vote for finishing the job because we don't want no failures, but we should try to get them out of there if need be. I'm pulling down my mask though because I don't want anyone knowing that it's me who's doing it.
Yeah.
We're not wiping the entire room. We should probably obscure our faces.
That's a good point. Gym socks and balaclavas, boys.
Good to me.
Alright, save for those three. If we see anyone else in there, we just gonna add them to the bucket list.
Hopefully.
Alright. Well then, suppose let's get to work. And
All right. That being the case, I need each of you all to first roll your dexterity and stealth, first and foremost.
you hate me, you evil, evil man. He keeps saying words
Dexterity
I don't
and
like.
stealth?
Mm-hmm.
Ugh.
Yeah, he
Sin would
keeps
have
saying
silence
words
of
like.
death up if that helps.
Sorry, what?
Sin would have silence of death up if that helps.
Oh, silence of death always helps.
Dan.
I'll rouse though.
I'm gonna kick my potence in just in case I need to bash someone with it.
It doesn't work like that. Don't worry about it. unless of course it's prowess, you need to roll it rouse for it at the time that you're going to be using it. Having it as a declared action, great, wonderful, you're good. But it's not.
DC.
Unless of course you're going to spend the blood for it every round of action until it's time for it to be of use.
I ain't doing that.
Man says evil words like dexterity. That's a no-no word, Nobu. You know that.
That's fine. That's fine. You guys are golden. What's the worst thing can happen? You guys have two targets that you're going after. It's really quite simple. Two high-ranking members of the Tremere who are at a social function with their guards down. You'll be fine. But how would morally know that they would have their guards down?
That is true. Honestly,
Quick
this whole,
question. Did he ever actually reach out to Mal on the phone? Because if he had of, then there would have been things that got exchanged. But if not, then we can skip that.
an attempt was made. Whether or not it went through, don't know.
We move forward, but the attempt was being made, yes.
So, we rationalizing it as he called her shop, but she had already headed off towards the poison apple at that point.
Yes.
There we go.
Who says she's going?
Who says she's going? That's true. Were you heading off to the poison apple?
I'm
I
taking
don't
it
know
from
if she's
Tremere
gonna
doesn't mean that there is no choice, but at the same time,
There's always a choice. So, as we're circling back around, plans are being made and laid into effect with some consideration. We'll go in reverse order. Back through Mallory, then to Reverend Noel, and then to Salem. So, as the question was asked earlier, once we got back, with those two sitting there, with the invitation clearly one of compliance, what is it that Mallory was attempting? Was she acquiescing and going along, or was she going to otherwise engage the Tremere that are there to escort her to wherever they're attempting to escort her to?
Well, seeing as how she would not let them into her space, because hell no. With them standing on the other side of the door and hearing her phone ring, she would, excuse me, I gotta go answer that. And shut the door in their face. Go to answer the phone.
Alright, roll strength, and first roll your strength plus melee as you attempt to close the door in their face. Secret police still have police tactics in regards to dealing with most kindred, taking it very personally, especially when you're accustomed to the fear response with most of your engagement. Most people understanding that in the last year, acquiescing is the only way to not be a victim of an excessive use of, well, what they are.
Sounds like there's about to be a situation of excessive violence.
Moving to close the door and holding inviolate the sanctity of your haven. No one knows that it's your haven. You're smart enough to keep that bit of information solely for yourself. And then the door doesn't latch, doesn't get much in the way of actually being closed. It slams against something. Sounds far harder and hollower than it should, as the shorter of the two steps forward, their foot just past the threshold. Now, Ms. Lawson, there are two ways this might happen. I'm hoping for one, and I'm sure you'd prefer the other. If that was important, we'd be the one making that call. What say you we mosey about what we need to get moseyed, lest we need to explain to you in very careful detail how best we can change your mind as to what's important.
I can't blame a girl for trying. I can't.
Oh,
I mean, I know what y'all ruffians here for.
Oh yes, we can, and we probably will, but in the moment you were part of the forgotten that made all of that mess that had to be invested in. There's just a little conversation with some out-of-towners y'all need to speak with. Kel, the regent, and the prince himself. Now we can do this my way, or we can do this the easy way. Either one works for me, though one works better, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's at this point I figure I ain't really got no ways about getting away from y'all, do I? Whatever, let me at least lock the damn door.
Oh, you ain't got to worry about that. You should make it easy for the person we gonna have toss your belongings while we are elsewise engaged. They'll put things back as it was unless of course they gotta exercise more effort than is needed.
At that point, she looks him dead in his eyes. Whoever you have come here, be very aware and careful of what they touch. I can't be held responsible for the spirits and what they decide to do when they are disrespected. As a Tremere, I assume you understand that.
Oh, we do.
And she marches around them and goes towards the car.
Ma'am, let me get that for you, says the taller one as he reaches towards the door, exactly just late enough to make an attempt but not actually have to do anything. There's a way things are done. There's a general respect inherent in most things, a decorum, or a ebb and flow, this happens, so then you must do this, and if you do this, then this must happen sort of understanding with most gatherings of kindred. The older ways, the more polite and respectful showings, matter of cause, habitual. As of late, with the changing landscape of New Orleans, those things have fallen more and more out of everyday use. The party is growing wilder. More and more people, more and more kindred holding on to their idea of what immortality is supposed to be versus the tried and true methods of interactions that have kept the kindred of New Orleans as safe as they have been for generations of time. Gatherings like this, while always in the offing, there were places throughout the quarter, places throughout the city where it was safer to do these things. There was Christians, and there were Morganes. Then there's a list of places, both real and kindred based, that have a certain level of security inherent, a certain level of prestige inherent. And you expect that as they pick you up and drive as only one who's accustomed to New Orleans can, navigating the one-way streets as if, well, that's the only way that they've ever known to drive. And in your particular case, a straight shot over Chartres all the way until you get to Wilkinson, and then you merge south and head over to Cater, and then back up Dumaine in that winding, very matter-of-fact, easygoing manner. There's traffic at all hours. There's foot traffic more so than vehicle traffic, and even the streets typically have more than enough parking for every vehicle. But as you head north across Dumaine, you realize that you are growing closer and closer to, well, Morgane's isn't there anymore, and There's nothing over in this area akin to related save, and there it is. There it sits, the Poison Apple Auditorium, the Mecca, as it were, for the coterie of the forgotten. Their symbol of power or shame, depending on who you speak with. And the fact that the moment you turn north on Domain, that every parking spot, every little byway, including the space directly across from the Apple where you can squeeze 2 or 3 cars into space and leave the alleyway and the back of Beyond open there between Madison and Domain. Every spot, every place, packed to the rafters and filled in with vehicles that normally wouldn't be the case. Bumper to bumping parking, especially during non-tourist seasons, when the outsiders to the area are smaller and smaller, is very much unusual. You have Teslas and small limos and town cars and SUVs and trucks from the deep swamp tidewater areas. You have vehicles lining Domain from Decatur all the way down to back to Chartres, and you can see them stretch down Domain, cross Chartres, probably as far as Royal, maybe even as far as Bourbon, back where all of this began, back at Morgane's. And instead of finding a parking spot, instead of parking and making you walk, they pull up right out front, the taller Kindred stepping out and opening the door for you. I'll be escorting you in, Miss Lawson. Right this way.
That's fine, dude. It's gonna be so painful.
Miss Lawson, I think death is a little late in that regard and has already found me once. I don't plan on a second time, if you get my drift.
Don't nobody plan to die a second time. But you know what I am, and you know what I can see. And it's coming for you, baby doll.
I'll do my best to make sure that wish fulfillment never actually happens. Miss Lawson, right this way. He points towards the wrought iron gate just outside of the alcove leading into that side door. The signs out front letting everyone know that the place is basically closed for the evening. And if you were alive with full autonomic responses, the feeling of your stomach bubbling would fill this moment with more tension. It would also very much be a reason for your blood pressure to ratchet through the roof. When going to a beating or a fight or a surprise birthday party, if you don't know who it's for, typically it's for you. Between the visions of death and blood and the year of disappearances, it is not a good feeling being taken to a former friend's, an associate's, a member of your coteries business by Tremere, who clearly could give two shits about what's nice, kind, polite, or otherwise even remotely respectful. And as you walk through the side door, Reverend, no, there's a way things are done. This is not it. You have mid to high ranking members of the established kindred community mingling and hobnobbing with the lowest denominator of the kindred community. They are all acting as if this is the social engagement of the season. They are all acting as if they know the outcome of whatever this is about before it begins. You've heard about certain princes using these moments of social gladiatorial events as a way to pick off their enemies. It's always a kindred of a kindred, a friend of a friend, or where you hear these rumors and asides. But rumors get started and propagated because there's some truth behind them. There's some measure of actual fact which caused them. And with all the disappearances over this last year, being in a room full of kindred, there's many kindred, not of one blood, not of one faith, not of one coterie, is, well, not that you're criminally minded, but it is a soft target. It is sometimes potentially too very much to ignore. After all, every crime has but one thing in common: opportunity. And in walks Mal.
Will head over to Mal. Familiar face and all.
So they got you too, huh?
Yeah. I don't like this.
What's the lie? Show up at your door. Don't give you no choice about where you going or not. Disrespecting your space. She looks at the tall one. Making it seem you not going home.
So considering the last time they threw us together like this, who do you think is supposed to be, I guess aside from this guy, she'll gesture at the tall one, not going home?
She smiles, kind of sadly. You ever heard the time, saying, if you walk into the room full of talking people and they all stop talking when you walk in, they was probably talking about you.
Sounds about right. Wouldn't be the first time we were the sacrifices.
if you knew what I've been seeing for this past year and 3 days in my head and in my visions, and even just standing still, you would think that maybe not going home might just be a blessing. But I ain't survived this long to not survive any further. So, being in this situation is highly uncomfortable.
Agreed.
As you all are speaking, Salem, it's a circus. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This is a full-fledged circus. Not even a planned event. This is like a free-for-all of social interactions. And while your sire has demanded the acquiescing, and while your sire is very clearly holding cards up their sleeves, there is no way that this is not, well, as problematic as it seems. In the face of this designed chaos, is there anything that they are attempting? Is there any security they're putting in place? Or are they simply going with the flow?
She didn't have the means or the resources, and considering her extremely diminished stature over the last year, I don't think she can call in any favors. So, I mean, it is what it is. She is wondering why all these people are here, considering this should have been a tribunal to decide on her transfer.
And there it is. The tribunal is typically something that's kept in the dark because you are able to probe and manipulate someone else's soft part. You're able to control the flow of information. The only time circuses are put on is to distract, or you already know what the outcome is. It's not a stretch of any political savvy that those are the only times a trial such as this would be held in public. That is either trap or theater, purposefully designed to elicit a response, a call to arms, an incitement of social violence, a bit of chicanery to hide the real reason for everything. There are quite a few maneuvers where dazzling someone with bullshit, and specifically that someone being the body politic of a local kindred community, that could be most advantageous. Seeing Reverend Noel and Mallory like a lifehouse on the rocks, or more accurately, the cheese on the mousetrap. Is there anything that Salem would do, or attempting to do, to mitigate or garner some semblance of support? After all, they're the only other two living witnesses to what took place.
She would give them a polite nod, but other than that, she probably sticks with her sire, playing the dutiful little child.
And therein lies the problem. Your sire, without any stretch of the imagination, without any exaggeration, is wielding their social cachet with such skill and death adroitness that where they cut, no one realizes. It's laser focused and down to the micrometer. It is a pleasant inclination of the head. It's a soft upturning of the corners of their mouth. It is the unsolicited touching of the tricep. It is the, oh, pardon me. I believe that we will slide by you here. Gabriella seems to have things well in hand that are impossible to have well in hand. Your sire, removed by several days of travel from the state, let alone the city, should not have that much visible confidence, as if they know what the outcome will be. There's theater, and then there's special effects, all to further enmesh viewers into whatever illusion you're crafting. But with theater, there's the risk because it is done live. There's the risk because it requires the investment of the audience. There's risk because you cannot, no matter how skilled you are, create the same exact performance night after night after night. There will be small variations of timing, pitch, tone, inflection, small enough that the audience, who were not there in previous cases usually, would never notice. But you, the performer, do. You realize if that's a little bit laggy, or if that's a little bit racy, or if that's a little bit off. You notice these things because you hear the music, you see the skill night after night after night after night after night. And yet, Gabriella is moving as if she owns every single solitary person. She's moving as if she's simply adjusting set dressing. She's moving as if she knows what the outcome is before it has even begun. And then Morley enters. His cane, his walking stick, clicking, clacking across the floor. The gentle smile dancing at the corners of his lips. And it is impossible by every stretch of the imagination to not see that your sire and Morley are working in cahoots, or at least have reached an agreement. And there's the odd thing. Over the last year, Morley has been less and less and less active than he has been at any other time of you knowing of his existence. He has stayed out of the way. He has kept his head down. Many people believe that he had fled to point to do elsewhere and was only visiting to show face. Yet, here he is.
Say, then we'll give him a nod and a smirk since she knows his secret, or believes she knows his secret. Other than that, as she follows Gabriella, will try to contribute to playing the room, but if she was going to win any hearts or minds, I don't think tonight is going to make the difference.
Hearts and minds. It's a great turn of a phrase, because that's very much what's on the line. That's very much what is being manipulated. That is very much what this game is in fact about. There is a theater of security, a theater that makes everyone feel as if they are in fact safe when they are not. Normally at places like the airport or city halls or places where there's a governor or a president or even just a mayor sometimes making an appearance, there's an increased heightened level of theater of security in place. People sweeping for bombs and sniffing for chemicals and walking with dogs and otherwise putting on a huge show of security. It usually fools just enough people. They believe that is what security requires. Those truly trained in understanding that it is in fact just all show and no go realize how unsafe a gathering of any size is when there are other individuals involved. There's a reason for someone to do a thing they very much will. And as you all close, Bo, Ian, and Sin, the number of cars up and down the road would have security being of the utmost important. Predominantly as there's nothing over here for tourists that would not be easier to get to with walking. There's nothing over here on Domain, this portion of Domain, that driving would ever help. Just being perfectly honest, if you really want to experience the city and get the best pictures and get the best environment when moving through the quarter, the best way to do so is to in fact walk. There's just no way that a tourist from somebody from out of town would be able to navigate the many Byzantine like one-way dead ends that are present throughout the quarter. And Domain is a one-way going north away from everything that is of any interest. There's Evans down on Decatur. There's the Royal Praline Company over on Madison. You've got, Jackson Square right there south on St. Anne. You got the Artillery Park. Everything's the opposite direction of the way that Domain flows, yet the street is packed. The street, it's filled with vehicle after vehicle after vehicle. Even the little pass-throughs where most people park when they're in a rush and want to get in and get out, or they're going to be waiting for a while, are filled. Directly across the street from the Apple, there's a pass-through that most people just park as firmly against the wall as possible to stay out of the way. All of the slots, all the spaces are filled. And as you move from Decatur down Domain, past Chartres, and almost to Bourbon itself, you all find a space just there on Royal in the pass-through between the historic Voodoo Museum and the law office that everybody goes to when they need to get off of from a DUI or a DWI or a drunken in public, an intoxication in public or some such. They're really skilled at getting people off for minor and major transgressions of the public faith. What elsewhere might be a civic citation here can be quite criminal, just like getting caught speeding. It is a death sentence. Your license disappears almost immediately as if attacked from a synchronous orbit satellite in some strange laser machine. Immediate destruction. The parking as far away as you do gives you all the opportunity to synchronize your watches, fall into lockstep, give whoever's going through the back door time to make their way across your treads and down the pass-through that runs behind the apple. Now, the problem with the pass-through that runs behind the apple, there are two small gates that you might have access to, otherwise you gotta go up and over. Those two small gates, which lead through the pass-through, are usually in situations where there would be security manned. There's not a person there. Almost as if they're inviting trouble. You can't have that many cars out front. You can't have that much activity and there not be something afoot. Making your ways along the side of the building and through the back and finally making your way toward the locked front door quietly and as stealthy as possible. You realize that the theater of security is not being broadcast. You don't see people walking, touching their ear or looking at their phone and trying to keep a watch. All of the security that you've all had to deal with over the last year, there's no corner boys keeping a watch. There's no one up top on the roof flipping birds. There's no gaggle of people who just hang around and loiter out front so that people get accustomed to being there. All of the signs of security are absent. How are you guys keeping in contact, or are you just mission go, go, go?
I would assume radios, right? Boys?
Oh.
If we have radios, I would definitely roll with radios because we do need to have some way to contact each other. We can't just run in.
They're super cheap. Radios are not that expensive, especially if we're just in a short range like this. And there's even you can get a lovely little wire that you can pop into the radio and give yourself a little earbud so it doesn't scream it out to the world around you.
That would work.
So
Wired earbud.
there you go. It's a very like Walmart-esque way of doing the whole security thing with the earbuds, but you know, we're not exactly running around in suits and tie.
Yeah, as long as we can stay in contact, that's the important thing.
Yeah.
Communication is key.
Bo calls out over the radio release kind of silently because he's in the dark in the shadows. Is it me or is there a whole shitload of people and not a lot of security out here?
Just a similarly quiet response. Just this comes off as an invitation rather than an attempt to stop anybody.
Yeah, something don't feel right.
Feels like a
I
trap.
don't know about you guys. Yeah, this seems like we're gonna bust in and everybody, all of our friends are gonna be standing there, sort of situation.
You want to come in from the same spot then? Strength in numbers?
I think we still should divide their fire, because if they're hitting us and we all come at the same time, they can hit us hard. If we divide their fire, they can't hit us all at the same time.
Alright, well then we need to settle on whether or not we're actually busting in or not. I'm still for it.
I'm still for it, but when you kill that power, that flashbang gonna have to be perfect. If you miss, we're fucked.
Alright. Let's get ready for it then. Seeing you in place.
Yeah.
Bo.
Check.
Alright. Count of 3.
And for that count, Ian, would you be so kind as to either use your intelligence plus larceny or your intelligence plus technology? You're trying to shut the power to just the building and not cause, well, other incidentals, accidents.
Yeah, boy. Hey, that's good luck so far. Let's fucking go. Standard DC.
As high as you can, yes.
Alrighty. That'll be 5.
Power going out in the south is nothing new. There are rolling brownouts all year round, simply because of the conservation needs of air conditioning and so forth and so on, and blah 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 blah. There's too much stress on the system. The system was put in place decades ago, and there's reason for infrastructure that needs to be done, and everyone is accustomed to it. Blocks go out at a time, but they come right back up. Houses will be out for a month or a week, and everyone's okay with it. It happens. You've gotten accustomed to it. And then there's the darkness that exists at all times, in all things, especially the kindred. And as Morley clinks his glass of obtained blood and says, kindred and Canaanites, we are here at the behest, the right and true Prince of all of New Orleans. We are here to get to the truth. We are here to divine what happened and who is responsible. If not for our illustrious guest, Gabriella, we would not have this opportunity. As you see, based on every bit of information, based on every hidden secret, we are here because the coterie of the forgotten, and then the lights go out. There's a glorification of violence in our media. There is an understanding that when doing a thing, either execute or be executed. There is an understanding that eventually, no matter how much or how little we have, that we will eventually need to shit or get off the pot. And there's a way that most stories end. Usually some grand denouement, some epilogue to tie things up into a nice, neat little bow. But we, and these characters by extension, live in a world where the brightest and darkest thing that can ever happen is being left to our own devices and choosing to not do a damn thing. To not know what the toss of the dice actually mean. To not know what tomorrow might grant us. And like all things, silence carries more weight than a screamed or yelled thing. And as the doors burst open, as speeches are made, as actions are taken, the coterie of the forgotten slips into silence, and we don't know what becomes of them. We leave them here on this precipice of action and inaction, all things decided and undecided. Their story for this moment ends where it had always existed, in that big gray soup of unknown. Thank you all for a lovely episode. Good night.